he called the tomb guard a mannequin in a costume, laughed in front of veterans, tourists, even children. Then he crossed the line. No one is allowed to cross straight into the guard's path. For a heartbeat, the soldier didn't move, just kept his rifle balanced like stone. But when he finally spoke, his voice cut sharper than any bayonet. What happened next left the entire plaza silent, and even the arrogant Russian who thought he knew war discovered a truth he could never forget. Before we dive into the story, where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. And if you believe that values like honor, courage, and sacrifice still matter, join us in keeping their legacy alive. The morning at Arlington National Cemetery began with silence, the kind of silence that carries weight, not emptiness. It was a silence born from respect, layered with decades of memory. The sky was pale with early light, a faint chill in the air, the smell of wet leaves from a rain the night before. Families walked slowly along the gravel paths, some holding flowers wrapped in paper, others pushing strollers, veterans shuffling with canes or rolling quietly in wheelchairs. All of them, in their own way, had come to stand before sacrifice. At the center of the grounds where tourists gathered with cameras but lowered their voices instinctively stood the tomb of the unknown soldier. Its marble surface gleamed softly, a timeless reminder that freedom is often purchased by men whose names are lost to history. Guarding the tomb that morning was Sergeant Daniel Mercer. He had been awake since before dawn, polishing each button, pressing every crease, checking his rifle with practice ritual. The uniform he wore was immaculate. Dark blue tunic, gleaming brass buttons, crisp white gloves, shoes shined so bright they mirrored the sky above. He marched with the unbroken rhythm of years of training. 21 steps down the black mat, a sharp turn, 21 steps back. Each movement was exact, each second measured. Mercer was not new to discipline. Before he had earned the right to wear the tomb guard's badge, he had been a combat infantryman. Twice he had deployed to Afghanistan, once to Kandahar, once to Helmand Province. He had patrolled dusty villages, heard the whistle of mortars overhead, felt the earth shudder beneath IEDs. He had seen friends fall and carried them back under fire. He did not speak of these things often, but every step he took here carried their memory. For Mercer, standing guard at the tomb was not ceremony, it was continuation. It was a promise he had made long ago that no one who gave everything would ever be forgotten. The crowd watching that morning was mixed, as it often was. American families with young children pointing curiously, tourists with cameras whispering, veterans with medals pinned to jackets, their faces lined but proud. And among them, standing with a posture of ownership rather than reverence, was one man who did not belong. He wore a thick wool coat with fur trim, though the air was not so cold. His boots were polished black leather, his scarf tucked neatly. He carried himself with confidence that tipped into arrogance. His voice carried loudly, cutting across the respectful hush of the crowd. "Ah," he said, gesturing toward Mercer with a mocking sweep of his arm. "Here is the American theater, soldiers dressed like dolls, very expensive dolls." Heads turned. A few frowned, but no one spoke. The man continued louder. "Film this," he told a companion, who obediently lifted a camera. "I want people to see. In my country, soldiers train for war. Here, they play games for tourists. Waste of money, waste of time." Mercer did not react. His eyes remained fixed, his pace unbroken. The Russian laughed sharp and sharp. "See, he does not move. He cannot move. This is not soldier. This is mannequin." In the crowd, a woman in her 70s, wearing a blue jacket pinned with a gold star, lowered her eyes, lips pressed tight. A veteran in a Vietnam cap muttered under his breath. The Russian's voice rose again. "My father fought in Afghanistan for the Soviet army. He bled. He carried real rifle. These men, costumes and ceremony, nothing more." A gravelly voice answered him from the side. "You don't know what you're talking about." The speaker was the veteran in the Vietnam cap, his back bent but his eyes steady. "That man's seen more combat than you'll ever know." The Russian sneered. "Combat? He stands like statue. Watch, he cannot stop me." And with that, he strode forward, his boots clicking across the stone, past the rope that marked the restricted zone. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A child whispered, "Daddy, he's not supposed to do that." Mercer stopped. His rifle snapped from shoulder to port arms in one smooth motion. His heel slammed down, the sound like a gunshot. His voice rang out sharp and commanding, "Step back. You are dishonoring this ground." The Russian froze for a heartbeat, startled, then his lips curled into a smirk. Finally, he speaks. "You tell me, step back, and if I do not, you will shoot me with empty rifle? This is theater, I know this." Mercer's voice cut through him. "This weapon is real. My service is real. 3 tours, Afghanistan. I buried men who never came home. This ground is sacred. You will not cross it." The Russian scoffed, but his bravado wavered. He took another step forward, and then, before security could close the distance, another voice rose, older, steady, a voice that carried the weight of memory. "Enough." From the crowd, an American veteran stepped forward. He leaned on a cane, his jacket patched with the insignia of the 1st Cavalry Division. His hair was silver, his face worn, his eyes piercing. "You think this is theater?" he asked the Russian, his voice low but carrying. "You think that guard is a mannequin? You don't know a damn thing." The Russian turned, smirking. "And you do, old man?" The veteran's gaze was steady. "Yes, because I was there." The Russian man laughed when the veteran spoke, but there was unease beneath it now, a flicker of doubt that had not been there moments before. "You were there?" he said, half sneer, half question. "Where? What could you possibly know of him?" The veteran shifted his cane, straightening as much as his back allowed. His voice carried further now, no longer just for the Russian, but for every ear in the gathered crowd. "Afghanistan, Helmand Province. It was 10 years ago. I was there as a liaison working with coalition forces. I remember a night patrol that went sideways fast. An Allied unit was ambushed in the dark, gunfire everywhere, RPGs lighting up the sky. We heard the calls for help on the radio. Not Americans, Russians, your soldiers." The Russian visitor blinked. His smirk faltered. The veteran's eyes grew distant, as if the marble plaza and bright autumn morning had melted away, replaced by the memory of another night under another sky. He spoke slower now, as if replaying it all step by step. It was just past midnight. The moon was a sliver. Dust hung in the air from explosions. We heard the firefight break out. Short bursts of AK fire, the heavy thump of machine guns, men shouting in panic. The unit was pinned in a wadi, caught low with insurgents firing from the ridges. We moved out fast, our small team trying to reach them. The ground shook with mortars. You could smell the cordite, taste the dust. His voice thickened, as if he could still hear it in his ears. "I remember seeing one of the Russian soldiers go down, chest ripped open with shrapnel. He screamed for help, and that man, the veteran, pointed at Sergeant Mercer, still standing motionless in perfect discipline, broke cover. He ran out under fire. We yelled at him to stop, to wait for smoke, for cover fire. He didn't. He just went." The crowd was silent, eyes locked on the old man. Every word carried weight. Even the children seemed to hold their breath. He reached that Russian, pulled him onto his back. The kid was heavy, his gear soaked in blood. Mercer carried him across 200 yards of open ground, bullets snapping past, dirt kicking up at his heels. Every step I thought would be his last, but he never slowed. He got that boy to the evac point, threw him into the arms of the medic, and went back for another. Didn't even catch his breath. The veteran's eyes sharpened. That Russian's name was Alexei Petrov. I never forgot it, because when we loaded him onto the bird, he grabbed Mercer's sleeve and kept saying it. "Americans, Americans," like he couldn't believe a stranger would bleed for him. He lived, barely, because of that man right there. The Russian visitor staggered back, as though struck, his face drained of color.
Alexei Petrov. His voice cracked, the arrogance stripped away. No, you cannot mean. He swallowed hard, eyes wide. That was my friend, my closest friend. We trained together. We went through Chechnya side by side. He told me once, he said, an American saved him in Afghanistan. I laughed. I told him he was foolish to believe such things. I never thought it could be true. The veteran stepped closer, his cane firm against the stone. It's true. I saw it with my own eyes.
I can still see Mercer carrying him through that hell. That's the man you just mocked. The Russian's lips trembled. He shook his head slowly, memories flashing in his own mind. He saw Alexei as a boy in uniform, laughing in the barracks. Alexei writing letters telling him of the night he should have died, but didn't. Alexei's voice saying, "An American saved me." He had dismissed it. He had forgotten until now. The veteran's words pressed harder. Sacrifice has no flag. Doesn't matter if it's American, Russian, or British. The pain of loss feels the same. The courage it takes to drag another man out of the fire feels the same. That guard isn't a mannequin. He's a soldier who carried your friend out of death. The Russian's shoulder sagged. His voice, when it came, was no longer loud. I mocked what I did not understand. My friend, he lived because of him, and I came here arrogant, spitting on sacrifice. The crowd was utterly silent. Even the rustle of leaves seemed to have paused. Mercer had not moved, had not broken his perfect bearing, but his voice rang out steady and sharp as steel. Respect is not optional here. It is earned by blood, by sacrifice. Step back. Show respect, not to me, but to all who never came home. The Russian looked at him, eyes glistening, then down at the ground. He stepped back across the rope line. Slowly, he placed a hand over his chest. His voice shook. "Forgive me, I was wrong." The old veteran nodded, his own eyes wet. He turned to the crowd. That's why they guard this tomb. It's not theater, it's not waste. It's a promise to the unknowns, to the fallen, to every family that never got an answer. Men like Mercer make sure none of them are forgotten. Ever. The Russian bowed his head. For the first time since he had arrived, his arrogance was gone, replaced with something else, humility and grief. The Russian man stood frozen just beyond the rope line, his breath visible in the cold morning air. The crowd had gathered tight now, not to gawk, but to witness. There was a sense that something larger than a tourist's misstep was unfolding. Something about truth, about memory, about sacrifice. The veteran leaned heavier on his cane, his eyes still on the Russian. "You said your father fought in Afghanistan. So did mine. Different places, different years, different flags. But every soldier carries the same burden. You should know that better than anyone." The Russian nodded weakly, swallowing hard. His voice, when it came, had none of the booming arrogance it carried before. "Yes, I should. My father told me about the men he lost. He said the dust never left his lungs, and the faces of his comrades never left his mind. And Alexei?" He paused, his chest heaving. "Alexei told me once that he lived because of an American. He told me with tears in his eyes, but I laughed at him. I told him no American would ever risk his life for a Russian. I was wrong." He turned fully to Mercer, who had resumed his motionless post, rifle balanced, eyes fixed forward. The Russian's voice cracked. "Sergeant, I came here to mock, but I see now you are not standing for show. You stand for sacrifice. You stand for my friend." Still, Mercer did not move, did not break the solemnity of his watch, but his words carried across the plaza, clipped, unwavering. "I stand for all who never came home. If your friend remembered me, then remember him now. Respect costs nothing, but dishonor costs more than you can afford." The Russian lowered his head, tears glistening at the corners of his eyes. He pressed a hand to his chest and bowed deeply toward the tomb. The gesture was slow, deliberate, the kind of bow that came not from culture, but from humility. A murmur spread through the crowd. Some clapped softly, others simply nodded, tears streaking their cheeks. A young boy squeezed his father's hand, whispering, "Dad, is he really sorry?"
His father, himself a veteran, whispered back, "Yes, son, he's sorry because he finally understands." The old veteran with the cane stepped closer to the Russian. For a moment, they simply looked at one another. Two old soldiers, once enemies by alliance, now bound by memory. Then the veteran extended his hand. "For Alexei," he said. The Russian hesitated only a second before gripping it firmly. His voice was thick. "For Alexei, and for all who lie here." They shook hands, and that simple gesture said more than speeches could. It was not just reconciliation between two men. It was a recognition that sacrifice crosses borders, that respect can bind even those who once faced one another down barrels of rifles. The veteran turned back to the crowd, his voice carrying, "This is why we guard the tomb, not just for Americans, though that is sacred enough. We guard it because it stands as a symbol to the world. Discipline, sacrifice, honor. These things aren't American alone, they're human. But here, in this place, we show the world how much it matters never to forget." The Russian wiped his eyes, then spoke again, his voice quieter but stronger than before. "In Moscow, we have our own tomb of the unknowns. I have walked there many times, but I never truly felt its meaning until today. From now on, when I go there, I will remember this place. I will remember the guard who saved my friend, and I will teach my children to show respect, because sacrifice knows no border." With that, he stepped back into the crowd. The arrogance that had marked his entrance was gone, replaced with something quieter. Mercer remained still. His steps resumed in perfect rhythm. 21 down, a crisp turn, 21 back. To him, nothing had changed. To him, this was simply another day of keeping the promise. But to those who had stood there that morning, everything felt different. The boy tugged at his father's sleeve again. "Dad, why does he keep walking like that?" His father bent down, his voice soft but sure. "Because every step says we remember. He walks so that no one forgets. He walks because freedom demands someone stand watch. And he walks from men like your Uncle John who never came home." The boy nodded, his eyes wide, understanding in a way words alone could not teach. The old veteran looked once more at Mercer, pride flickering in his worn face. He knew what it meant to carry memory, to live with ghosts. He also knew what it meant to see those ghosts honored. The Russian lingered a moment longer before leaving, his hand still on his chest. As he walked away, he whispered in his own language, words that needed no translation. "Spasiba. Thank you." The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the marble. The guard's cadence never faltered. The tomb stood silent, as it always had, as it always would. And those who left that day carried a story of arrogance humbled, of memory restored, of respect demanded and given. A story that would be told again and again, not because of the confrontation, but because of the lesson, that sacrifice is eternal, and respect is the only answer worthy of it. The old veteran's final words echoed in the minds of many as they departed. Sacrifice has no flag, and on that sacred plaza, with the sound of measured steps striking stone, the truth felt undeniable. If you enjoyed the story, consider sending a super chat to help bring more stories like this. Now click on the video on the screen to hear another story that's just as powerful and captivating, with courage, sacrifice, and a choice that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about duty and justice. Click on the video.